What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel for another episode of Sailboat's Restorations. Today I'm going to be working on this pair of Jordan 10 powder blues to give them a complete reglue. Let's dive right into it. This pair of kicks was given to me by a homie Joe over in San Diego at Kobe Swap Meet. Joe was nice enough to bless me with this pair. He knew that the soles were separating and knew that he wasn't going to be able to get any sort of money on them. So he tossed them in my direction and told me to work my magic with them. Let's take a closer look so you guys know exactly what I'm working with. The major problem that you can see is with the separation right on the toe cap here. This is definitely the outsole peeling back. If I were to mess around a bit with the midsole, you can see that that's actually starting to peel back from the uppers a bit too. I may have to just do a full reglue, and I would rather just take care of everything at once, quite honestly. The right shoe, more of the same. These uppers are just separating pretty badly. That glue bond is breaking down. We have a whole bunch of that leather that's just peeling off. So even though the glue is holding strong in some parts, it's just really peeling off at other parts. So we're gonna have to get a heavy duty removal on all of that, and then we'll have to get it all cleaned off after. First step of this process is gonna be getting the soles off of this pair. So as you guys can see, the outsoles are definitely separating from the midsoles. Whether or not the midsoles are separating from the uppers, well, I guess time will only tell. We'll get into the separation process and we'll see exactly how much work is going to be involved on this specific pair of kicks. Next to me, I have my can of acetone, a little syringe, and of course, my trusty steam gun. We're gonna use those three things to help to separate the soles from the upper.
Even though I had acetone on the side, I ended up not using it because the heat from the steam gun and the pressure from the bone folder were enough to help to separate all of the surfaces without damaging any of them.
Now that the soles are off, it is time to prep the uppers for a reglue. So I'm gonna get my Dremel tool and kind of shave down the leather.
My Dremel was definitely the most appropriate tool as far as the uppers were concerned because I was able to exchange between different bits to remove all of the old excess glue while simultaneously roughening up the surfaces to try and get a better bond during the regluing procedures.
We got the outsole separated from the midsole and the midsole separated from the uppers. I still have a ton of old glue remaining, so I'm gonna break out the acetone and cotton balls so I can clean off the outsoles, the bottom of the uppers, and the midsoles.
For the outsoles and the midsoles, I actually just used denatured alcohol and some cotton balls to remove all the old excess glue, which was coming off very easily. On the right shoe, I did end up pulling out the old air unit because the glue had broken down too much, but on the left shoe, the glue bond was still very much intact and I didn't want to risk damage to the air unit.
These Jordan 10s are completely separated and all of the surfaces have been prepped and are ready for a reglue. I'll start off by bonding the outsole to the midsole first, and then once that bond has been completed, then we'll go ahead and get the midsole bonded to the upper.
I prefer to attach the outsoles to the midsoles first because I find it gives me a little bit more structural support and gives me a better foundation to work off of. I start by applying one thin layer of barge superstick cements to both the outsoles and the midsoles. After about 10 to 15 minutes of curing, I apply a second thin layer as well and let that then cure for about 2 hours. After letting the glue cure for 2 hours, it's time to align the surfaces that you're working with to bond them together and reheat the glue. I learned during this specific project that I had been reheating my glue for far too long every single time I had tried to do some sort of project utilizing barge superstick cement. I want to point your attention to step number 5, which says let dry for 5 to 10 minutes. And also step number 7, which says the dry time is exceeded, the glue may be activated at a temperature of 110 to 130 degrees. This means that you only need to reheat your glue for a very short period of time to reactivate it and create a bond between the surfaces that you're working with. pressure definitely helps this bond even more. So if you have some sort of roller or hammer to help with the pressure, that is going to help with your bond. After gluing the midsole to the outsole, I like to install my air units. This way I can really regulate the temperatures that I'm using and make sure I don't apply too much heat and burst the air unit.
I was able to successfully reglue the midsoles to the outsoles on these Jordan 10s. The alignment looks pretty good, but unfortunately I heated up the glue a little too much in some spots, so it's not the cleanest reglue in the world, but it's definitely strong and the bond will hold. The next step, to get the uppers reglued to the midsoles. Unfortunately, I am running a little bit low on glue right now, so I'm gonna do one shoe at a time, and hopefully I'll be able to get both of them done. But if not, I'll have to wait until my new shipment of glue comes in. Let's get down to that gluing process.
Regluing the uppers to the midsoles is a very similar process as gluing the outsoles to the midsoles, just because of the fact that you're going to apply your glue and then you're going to let it cure for about 2 hours before you reheat it to reactivate the glue and create the bond between the surfaces. As you can see here, I apply all of my glue following the lines that I previously made during all of my prep work, and then after aligning things appropriately, I apply little bits of heat and a lot of pressure to help to create a bond between the uppers and the midsoles of these kicks. As it would turn out, I did end up having to wait for another can of glue to come in because I finished up the left shoe and totally ran out of glue and did not have enough to do the right shoe. I followed the same exact procedure as far as applying my glue, waiting for it to cure for 2 hours, and then applying small amounts of heat after aligning the upper to the midsole in order to create a nice strong bond that would last.
I have finished regluing this pair of Jordan 10 powder blues, and they are holding up very nicely. Let's take a closer look so you guys can see what the finished product looks like. One of the things that I want to talk about is the glue line between the midsole and the outsole. As I learned during this process, I was reheating the glue too much, which was causing it to separate and cause spider web type of looks like you can see right here. And unfortunately, it is a common occurrence throughout the entirety of both shoes. I was able to seal up this tear in the back, and it's much more difficult to tell that it's there. The bond between the uppers and the midsoles is a lot cleaner than the bond between the midsoles to the outsoles. In the toe cap, I definitely over dremeled a little bit, so there's a couple of scuff marks, but throughout the rest of the shoe, it is a much cleaner reglue than what happened with the outsole to the midsole. You can see the same exact thing over on the right shoe here. The reglue between the upper and the midsole, again, just a lot cleaner than the reglue between the midsole and the outsole. I definitely will say that this was one of the most important pairs that I've ever worked on, as I finally learned a major lesson when it came to reheating the glue. I was reheating the glue a little bit too much, which was causing the surfaces that I was trying to bond to actually pull apart because the glue got too liquid after getting heated up. When I found out that I only needed to reheat ever so slightly to reactivate the glue, it absolutely changed the game for me and caused for my reglue to get a ton cleaner. Obviously, overall, this is not one of the cleanest reglues in the entire world. I will say that this may have been one of the most important when it's come to my restorations that I've ever worked with. While I am a little bit bummed about the glue lines from the outsole to the midsole, if I hadn't made those mistakes, I wouldn't have learned the lesson that I learned during this project. I couldn't be more thankful because I know that my restoration projects in the future are gonna come out that much cleaner. Hopefully, you guys learned a couple of restoration techniques during this video. Please let me know what you guys found most interesting about this process in the comments below. If you guys enjoyed what you saw in today's video, please take the 10 extra seconds to click that like button as well as that subscribe button. It takes 2 clicks with your pointer finger, and quite honestly, doing so goes a long way in helping to support this channel. If you guys are interested in following some of the other projects that I got going on, make sure that you visit the website at www.sailboatsupplies.xyz. If you want to stay up to date on a day-to-day basis, make sure that you tap in on social media at Sailboat Supplies. And as per usual, thank you to everybody that stuck around until the cold, bitter end of this video. You guys already know, I'm Sailboat, and I'm out of here.